Someone with a history of peptic ulcer present to you with signs of perforated peptic ulcer such as rigidity, abdominal pain, tenderness, and gout, then it is most likely that his ulcer is got perforated after surgery because the stress during operation leads to high production of gastric acid. So they can ask you a scenario of perforated peptic ulcer like this also in PLAB 1 exam. We perform erect chest and abdominal X-ray to look for air under diaphragm in perforated peptic ulcer and not ultrasound or nor CT scan.
Sir, I cannot see the text.
Just a minute. Let me share the. So if we are suspecting perforated duodenal ulcer, then we perform abdomen and chest X-ray, erect, not ultrasound or not CT scan. Now, in a patient with celiac disease, if his TTG is positive, then the next step is to perform duodenal or jejunal biopsy before advising the patient to go on a gluten-free diet. So if someone with symptoms of celiac disease and his TTG is positive, then before advising the patient to go on a gluten-free diet, we need to perform duodenal or jejunal biopsy to confirm our diagnosis. Now, a patient came from Kenya, develops watery diarrhea with abdominal cramping. What is the most likely organism for his symptoms?
E. coli.
E. coli, that's right. Now, a 27-year-old female with 1 week history of jaundice, fever, malaise. So, a young female with abnormal LFTs. She has recently been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, with a history of hypothyroidism, for which she is taking levothyroxine. What is the most likely diagnosis?
It's autoimmune.
Why autoimmune?
Is it drug induced?
Drug induced.
Why drug induced? Does levothyroxine can cause abnormal LFTs?
No.
So it's not drug induced.
So it's
Then
like
what-
autoimmune hepatitis.
Acute.
Just look at the scenario. A young female with abnormal LFTs and hypothyroidism. What is the cause of hypothyroidism? What is the most common cause of hypothyroidism in UK?
It's autoimmune.
Yes, autoimmune. So a female with abnormal LFTs and plus any other autoimmune condition, our diagnosis will be autoimmune hepatitis. Is that right, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's autoimmune hepatitis. Middle-aged female plus abnormal LFTs plus minus secondary amenorrhea. Secondary amenorrhea is not always present. It will be present sometimes. It will be not present sometimes. other autoimmune diseases such as thyroid disease, vitiligo, and diabetes type 1.
So she is not middle aged, she's 27.
It's okay, it can occur in, it's not a hard and fast rule that it will only occur in middle-aged female.
Sir, it
Okay.
can be SLE, like any autoimmune disorder, then we can think of autoimmune hepatitis, the same
Yes,
scenario.
yes. Any autoimmune condition with abnormal LFTs is autoimmune hepatitis.
So what will be the liver functions? So if ALP is normal, what about AST and ALT?
They have mentioned that LFTs are abnormal. Abnormal LFTs mean she is having jaundice, bilirubin is raised, and ALT and AST will also be raised in autoimmune hepatitis.
Okay.
Normal LFTs mean bilirubin, ALT, and AST all are raised or abnormal.
Okay.
They have used a generalized term that is LFTs are abnormal.
Okay.
Now, a female with jaundice and a history of Sjogren syndrome, then it's primary biliary cirrhosis. Female with jaundice and history of inflammatory bowel disease, then it will be primary sclerosing cholangitis. Someone with a history of heavy alcohol consumption and signs of liver disease such as ascites, hematemesis, jaundice, hepatomegaly, spider nevi, and reverse ratio of AST and ALT, then it is most likely alcoholic liver disease. Now, the one you people were talking about, the drug-induced hepatitis. The most common cause of drug-induced hepatitis is comoxiclave or augmentin. So, if someone present to you with recent use of comoxiclave and abnormal LFTs, then it is drug-induced hepatitis, or which is also known as cholestatic hepatitis. In the PLAB 1 exam, cholestatic hepatitis will be asked like this. After the use of comoxiclave, someone will present to you with abnormal LFTs and also features such as dark urine, itchiness, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. Then it is most likely cholestatic hepatitis. ALT, ALP, GGT, bilirubin all will be raised.
GTT is only raised in alcoholic liver disease.
GGT can be
That
raised in any type of hepatitis.
not
It's not on,
specifically for alcoholic.
yes, not specifically for alcohol.
Okay.
Sir, can you please repeat the alcoholic hepatitis with the ratios?
Yes, in alcoholic hepatitis, normally ALT is raised more than AST. In normal hepatitis, like autoimmune hepatitis or hepatitis due to hepatitis B or hepatitis C, in all these conditions, ALT is raised more than AST. While in alcoholic hepatitis, the ratio is reversed. AST is raised more than ALT. Got it?
Sir,
Now, a 20-year-old female, 4 months of intermittent diarrhea and abdominal bloating, blistering rash on her elbow, low HB. What is the most likely diagnosis?
Celiac disease.
Excellent. Intermittent diarrhea and abdominal bloating, we have seen in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Usually there is no abdominal bloating in those conditions. This is only associated with commonly with celiac disease. So intermittent diarrhea and abdominal bloating. What is the name of the blistering rash on her elbow? Can anyone tell me?
Herpetiformis. uh, um,
Yes, herpetiformis. What's the first
Dermatitis
name of?
suppurativa.
Yes, dermatitis herpetiformis, a commonly associated condition with celiac disease. Your answer is right. Dermatitis herpetiformis. So what will be the finding on biopsy in celiac disease?
villus atrophy and crypt
Villus atrophy,
and crypt uh, and
crypt
lymphocyte
hyperplasia.
Crypts of Lieberkühn.
Yes,
and lymphocytes in the epithelium.
yes, lymphocyte infiltrates. So someone present to you with abdominal pain and diarrhea after use of antibiotics, then the most likely organism is Clostridium difficile and diagnosis is pseudomembranous colitis. The treatment for pseudomembranous colitis is also antibiotic, which is flagyl or metronidazole. So someone with a history of or someone with a history of recent antibiotic use present to you with diarrhea, which can be bloody, abdominal pain, and fever, then the diagnosis is most likely Clostridium difficile. Which investigation you will perform to confirm the diagnosis? You will perform stool antigen for Clostridium difficile, and the treatment of pseudomembrane colitis or Clostridium difficile is oral metronidazole, not IV. Oral metronidazole or oral vancomycin. First line is oral metronidazole, second line is oral vancomycin. Remember that oral vancomycin and not IV. What are the antibiotics which can cause Clostridium difficile? Clindamycin, amoxicillin, ampicillin, bromoxyclave, ciprofloxacin, all of them can cause pseudomembranous colitis. History of recent treatment with antibiotics, diarrhea, which might be bloody, abdominal pain, fever, high WBC and CRP. Investigation is CDT in stools, Clostridium difficile toxin in stools, and treatment is oral metronidazole or oral vancomycin. Here's a scenario to clarify things more. A patient with cellulitis admitted for 3 days and treated with clindamycin. Soon after, he develops bloody diarrhea, abdominal pain, and high fever. WBCs and CRP are high. This is most likely pseudomembranous colitis. Now, can someone, 40-year-old male with type 2 diabetes mellitus complains of pain in his joints, increase in breast size, fatigue, on examination, deep tan colored skin, and enlarged liver. What is the most likely diagnosis?
Hereditary hemochromatosis.
Yes, hereditary hemochromatosis is the answer. Joint pain, diabetes, hepatomegaly, and skin pigmentation is most likely hereditary hemochromatosis. Yes. Now let's see who answered this one. 40-year-old obese female, severe upper abdominal pain plus vomiting, fever, and increased WBC. What is the most likely diagnosis?
Cholecystitis.
Acute cholecystitis.
Acute cholecystitis. What are the hints for acute cholecystitis?
She's
Obesity.
40
female.
obese female.
40 female, fat,
Yes,
all that.
yes, that's right. Acute cholecystitis. The first line investigation in case of acute cholecystitis is ultrasound. If the diagnosis remain unclear even with ultrasound, then you can perform HIDA scan. Treatment is antibiotics and laparoscopy, cholecystectomy within 1 week of the diagnosis.
So what is HIDA scan?
In HIDA scan, a dye is usually given, and then CT scan is performed.
Okay.
Diagnosis.
Okay.
So most of the cases of acute cholecystitis are diagnosed with ultrasound. But if the diagnosis is
Uh-huh. So if
remain-
this is not picked up in ultrasound, so this is the next option.
yes,
Okay.
then someone is read this scenario.
24 hours after ERCP endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography for gallstones, a 40-year-old female returns to A&E complaining of severe right upper quadrant pain and tenderness, high fever 38.9 degrees, and she looks yellow.
What is the most likely diagnosis in this case?
It is ascending cholangitis.
24 hours after ERCP for gallstones. Ascending cholangitis is basically an infection.
Okay.
A 40-year-old
Pancreatitis.
female, severe right upper quadrant pain and tenderness, high fever, and she looks yellow. Charcot triad is completed. It can be ascending cholangitis because there is
The
fever.
pain is not specific like that of pancreatitis, and also it looks yellow, so it is more looking like ascending cholangitis.
Yes, you're right. Because the Charcot triad is completed. High fever, jaundice, and right upper quadrant pain. So Charcot triad is completed. The only point in favor of pancreatitis is ERCP for 24 hours. So we'll go with ascending cholangitis. Yes, it's ascending cholangitis. The next investigation is abdominal ultrasound. As it is an infection, so after ultrasound, you will order blood cultures. Now, a patient who has underwent an endoscopy for chronic dyspepsia yesterday returned to hospital today complaining of chest pain and SOB. The pain is worse at the epigastric area and radiates to the interscapular region of back. The abdomen is soft, lax, and non-tender. He is tachypneic, tachycardic, mildly feverish, with normal hypertension.
That is perforated peptic ulcer.
Medinitis.
Perforated peptic ulcer, it can be perforated. The abdomen is soft, lax, and non-tender.
It looks like mediastinitis. I think I've seen a question. Like,
Yes, mediastinitis. Why not aortic dissection?
The pain is not very severe.
The
Sir, it's written worse. It's not a sphere.
So it is at the epigastric area. So the pain
epigastric
for
area that radiates to intercapsular region. It can be aortic dissection, but remember that you can see in the end line that they have said that the blood pressure is normal. A patient with aortic dissection will usually develop hypotension.
Hypertension, yes.
So abdomen is soft, lax, and non-tender. So it rules out perforated peptic ulcer. And the other thing, aortic dissection is ruled out by the normal hypertension. They are showing an X-ray result. We can see widening of the mediastinum. Normally, this is the boundary of mediastinum, but it has widened up to this point. Now the patient was also having dyspnea and SOB. So lung parenchyma looks normal. All the lung field looks normal, so it ruled out any lung infection. So it most probably mediastinitis. Because the patient underwent endoscopy, so there's a complication of endoscopy, which is esophageal perforation, which can lead to mediastinitis. Treatment is antibiotic plus
Sir, what are the causes of mediastinitis?
esophageal perforation can lead to mediastinitis. Esophageal perforation after surgery or after endoscopy can lead to mediastinitis.
Okay.
So treatment is antibiotics plus repairment of the perforation. Normal BP exclude vascular injury. Clear lung field exclude pneumonia and pneumothorax. Now, slowly progressive dysphagia in a young adult, no weight loss, HB is normal. History of taking ranitidine for retrosternal discomfort for long period. What is your diagnosis?
Esophageal spasm.
Esophageal
Spasm.
spasm. Slowly progressive dysphagia. In esophageal spasm, the dysphagia will be sudden in onset and not slowly progressive. Slowly progressive dysphagia in a young adult, no weight loss, HB is normal. He has a history of, this is the hint, main hint, taking H2 blockers for GERD for a long period of time. What are the complications of GERD?
Oh, esophageal
With
structure.
Barrett's esophagus.
Yes, Barrett's esophagus, esophageal stricture.
You
Does
even
it look
take
like Barrett? Does it look like Barrett esophagus or esophageal stricture?
Structure more likely.
Yes, because in Barrett esophagus, the dysphagia is occasional, while in esophageal stricture, the dysphagia is progressive. Slowly progressive dysphagia, it's more likely esophageal stricture, while in case of Barrett esophagus, the dysphagia will be occasional. Yes, it is peptic stricture. How to know if the liver has mets from lung? Lung metastasis lung cancer can spread to the liver. How we are going to know that this cancer has come from the lungs? We can know that by a tumor marker, which is thyroid transcription factor 1, TTF1. How the cancer is spread from lung to the liver? The spread is mainly hematogenous. From lung, the cancerous cells are transported to heart, from heart to aorta, then celiac trunk, then common hepatic artery, and then liver. So that's how cancer can spread from lungs to the liver through hematogenous route. And
Sir, what is
how
the
we are
name of
going
the factor? Can you please repeat?
TTF1, TTF1. thyroid
Okay.
transcription factor 1 is a marker for primary adenocarcinoma of the lung. Now, another scenario, 40-year-old male attended the accident emergency with severe crushing retrosternal pain. So, severe crushing retrosternal pain that has started when he drank cold water an hour ago. He is given sublingual nitroglycerin and the pain subsides. So, a patient present to you with retrosternal pain that started when he drank cold water and the pain settled with nitroglycerin.
So this
So the,
is esophageal spasm. Yeah.
As
the pain of angina can also settle down with, or MI can also settle down with nitroglycerin. But in this scenario, you can see that ECG is normal and cardiac enzymes are also normal. So that rule out the cardiac cause, only one cause remaining, and that is esophageal spasm. Esophageal spasm is usually precipitated by cold drinks or cold water. And the pain is usually have no association with exertion. While in case of angina, unstable angina or non-acetylation MI or MI, the pain is associated with exertion. The likely diagnosis is esophageal spasm. Diffuse esophageal spasm is also the other name for this condition. Retrosternal pain is similar to MI, but no relation with exertion. That's the one differentiating point. Dysphagia that is aggravated by cold drinks. So a patient with dysphagia that is aggravated by cold drinks.
sir,
Another
sometimes
point,
the same type of the pain can be felt by rice, or it can only be by cold drinks.
no, it can be aggravated by foods as well.
Oh, okay, sir.
Anything can cause esophageal spasm by irritating the esophageal muscles. But
Okay.
in a plab exam, it is most likely to be asked that if a person after having a cold drink develops severe retrosternal chest pain.
Okay, sir.
How we are going to diagnose? We are going to diagnose by barium meal. Barium meal will show Cox to appearance of the esophagus during the spasm. Most accurate test is manometric studies. As we have discussed in ecclesia, that manometry is basically to measure the pressure in different areas of esophagus. So the most accurate test to diagnose diffuse esophageal spasm is also manometric studies. The initial is barium meal like in ecclesia, and the definitive is manometric studies, also like in ecclesia. Treatment is as there is smooth muscle spasms, so we will give muscle relaxants, drugs which will relax the muscle, such as calcium channel blockers, nifedipine, and nitrates as well. So retrosternal chest pain that is started after food intake or cold intakes, it's most likely diffuse esophageal spasm. Initial investigations bariums follow. Video fluoroscopy can also be performed, and most accurate test is esophageal manometry.
So in calcium channel blocker, why they are specifically giving nifedipine? Why can't they give amlodipine?
Nifedipine is a short-acting drug,
Okay.
so we want a drug that is short-acting because it will relieve the spasm, and this onset of action is also
Quicker.
quicker. Amlodipine will take time and it will stays in the blood for a longer duration of time.
Okay.
That's why nifedipine is preferred over amlodipine. So chronic diarrhea plus biopsy shows crypt abscess. What is the diagnosis?
Ulcerative colitis.
Ulcerative colitis. That's right. What will biopsy show in Crohn's disease?
Skipped lesions, cobblestone appearance.
Cobblestone appearance.
Skip lesions and cobblestone appearance, that is a biopsy finding or endoscopic finding?
Is there a mnemonic for it? Because they keep getting mixed up.
Yes, cobblestone appearance you can see with the camera,
Biopsy.
with the gross naked eye,
Endoscopy.
endoscopy or colonoscopy. Skip
Yes,
lesion
sir.
can also be seen by colonoscopy. But to see crypt abscess, to see crypts, you need a microscope, you need a
Biopsy.
biopsy, you need a histologic examination. So the histologic findings of Crohn's disease will be,
Granulomas,
yes,
and increased goblet cells.
yes. Now you have got it right. Goblet cells will be increased because to see cells we need a microscope, and for gross look we can have colonoscopy. So yes, it's ulcerative colitis, crypt abscess and decreased goblet cells, ulcerative colitis. See, skip lesion, transmural ulcer, cobblestone appearance, they can be seen on endoscopy. And histology is granuloma and goblet cells. In histology, we will talk about the cells. And cells cannot be seen with a camera or with naked eye. Histology of ulcerative colitis is crypt abscess and decreased goblet cells, and histology of Crohn's disease is granuloma plus increased goblet cells. Fistula formation is also associated with Crohn's disease. I hope you do not need any mnemonic now.
Yes, I think I may have to memorize that. It's quite annoying.
It's a very important topic, so yes, you need to revise it again and again, so that it. So again, disease of chronic disease treatment. First line is prednisolone, second line is budesonide, third line is mesalazine. We have already discussed that. Now, another condition, severe shooting recurrent episodes of rectal pain that are brief, transient, and self-limiting without any abnormalities seen on sigmoidoscopy. The diagnosis is proctalgia fugax. Rectal pain with normal sigmoidoscopy, rectal pain that is short-lived, and sigmoidoscopy is normal, your diagnosis will be proctalgia fugax. Liver biopsy shows large amount of iron pigments within hepatocytes. So iron pigment within the liver cells is hemochromatosis, while iron pigments within the Kupffer cells or macrophages is hemosiderosis. So remember this difference. If iron cells are within the iron pigments are within the hepatocyte, then it is hemochromatosis, and if it's within the Kupffer cells or macrophages, then it is hemosiderosis. Now, a left supraclavicular lump plus weight loss plus old age. What is your diagnosis?
Gastric cancer.
Gastric carcinoma. Excellent. Now answer the what is the diagnosis of the scenario written in key 66?
Crohn's disease.
That's right. It's Crohn's disease. Why? What are the hints or points towards Crohn's disease?
So if the
The
ELISIC
transmural
Start
granulomatous
from the first
inflammation.
line. Start from the first line. What are the hints in
Realistic-
first line, second line, and third line? I want you to tell me all the points that are in favor of Crohn's disease.
Diarrhea and weight loss.
Yes,
Because there's no weight loss. There's little or no weight loss in ulcerative colitis.
that's right.
And then the perianal skin tags.
Yes, perianal disease is also common in perianal
Crohn's.
fistula or skin
Right.
tags are common in Crohn's disease. That's right. And
Yeah. The third one is the transmural, meaning all the layers of the intestine,
I
the
know.
granulomatous inflammation. And then the ileocecal junction, of course.
Yes, excellent. The likely diagnosis is Crohn's disease. Then there are some common causes of finger clubbing. That's just for your knowledge. Again, a scenario of a person with dysphagia and esophageal dilatation with smooth narrowing at the distal end. It's eclasia. Now, management of constipation. How will you manage a case of constipation? An elderly woman residing in the nursing home complains of 5 days diarrhea. She is on analgesics for her osteoarthritis. Rectal examination reveals her hard impacted stool. So diarrhea in a patient with hard impacted stools. What is the name of this diarrhea? The name of this diarrhea is spurious diarrhea. Spurious diarrhea, the mechanism of spurious diarrhea is that seepage of fluid through hard impacted stool will result in diarrhea, but still the patient has hard impacted stool. The immediate management in hard impacted stool is phosphate enema. However, if the
Sorry, are
patient
you?
is yes,
Sorry, are you able to spell the diarrhea that you just mentioned?
I think in the coming keys you will see the spelling of this diarrhea as well.